Let's get right into it. For decades, we've treated sleep like a luxury, or maybe just this frustrating biological tax on our time. But the latest science? It reveals a completely different reality. Sleep is absolutely not a passive shutdown. It is an active, high-stakes biological reconstruction sequence that regulates your nervous system and literally dictates your longevity. Today, we're going to see exactly how your body uses sleep to repair tissue, clear out neurotoxins, and even rewrite your own DNA. So let's start by challenging a core assumption. When your head hits the pillow tonight, your brain doesn't just turn off. Sleep isn't just about feeling rested. It's a critical, non-negotiable physiological mandate. As you'll see in this explainer, if you skip this nightly reconstruction, you aren't just looking at short-term burnout, morning anxiety, or that heavy brain fog the next day. No, you're actually actively driving your body toward chronic inflammation, cognitive decline, and even cardiovascular disease.
Section 1. The Architecture of Sleep. To really understand how sleep heals us, we first have to map out its biological terrain, which is highly structured. It's this active cycle of progressive revelation. You start off descending from the light sleep of stage 1 down into stage 2. This is where your brain fires off these rapid bursts of electrical activity called sleep spindles. Then you plunge into the deeply restorative depths of stage 3. We call this slow wave sleep, and it's dominated by massive, rolling electrical pulses known as delta waves. And finally, you pull back up into rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, where your muscles go completely limp, but your brain activity, it looks almost exactly like it does when you're wide awake.
Now, what's truly fascinating here is that this specific architecture cycles 4 to 5 times every single night. Each of these cycles lasts about 90 to 110 minutes, and the sequence is absolutely vital. You literally cannot skip stages because each phase is busy orchestrating a completely different type of biological repair.
Which brings us to Section 2, your brain's nightly wash. Let's zoom in on the neurological layer, because what's happening inside your skull right now is an astonishing feat of biological engineering. Meet the glymphatic system. This was discovered relatively recently, and it acts as your brain's overnight maintenance network. You see, all day long, as your neurons fire, they leave behind this metabolic waste. This includes misfolded proteins like amyloid beta and tau, which, by the way, are the exact proteins implicated in neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's. Well, your glymphatic system uses cerebrospinal fluid to aggressively wash this toxic debris right out of your brain.
And the mechanics of how this wash actually works are just mind-blowing. During stage 3 deep sleep, your brain cells literally shrink by up to 60%. Just imagine the buildings in a crowded city contracting at night just to widen the streets. At the exact same time, there's a sharp drop in a stress neurotransmitter called norepinephrine. This drop is absolutely crucial. It's a key mechanism that downregulates your nervous system, shifting you completely out of fight or flight so those fluid channels can relax. Finally, those massive electrical delta waves pulse in perfect sync with your heartbeat to physically pump fluid through the expanded space, flushing all the toxins away. If you miss deep sleep, well, the trash simply stays in your brain.
Moving on to Section 3. Memory, plasticity, and pruning. But hey, your brain isn't just taking out the trash. It's simultaneously rewriting its own circuitry to optimize how you perform cognitively. The crucial takeaway here is the division of labor between your sleep stages. Think of slow-wave sleep as a stern editor. It takes the factual declarative memories from your day, transfers them from short-term over to long-term storage, and literally prunes away the synaptic connections you just don't need. REM sleep, on the flip side, is your creative synthesizer. It processes complex emotional memories, links totally unrelated ideas together to form new insights, and majorly boosts your overall neuroplasticity. You absolutely need both of these to function at your peak.
Section 4. The endocrine and immune switch.
Let's zoom out to a systems level now, because there's this incredibly surprising bidirectional dialogue happening between your nervous system and your immune system. It turns out your immune system actually helps control your sleep. During your waking hours, just everyday cellular metabolism and neural activity create a buildup of a molecule called ATP. This buildup triggers your local glial cells to release inflammatory immune molecules, specifically cytokines like interleukin-1 and tumor necrosis factor. These molecules literally act as a biological switch. They signal your brain that it's time to transition your autonomic nervous system from that hyper-alert sympathetic waking state right down into a parasympathetic rest and digest state, shutting the whole body down for sleep. 70 to 80%. Let that sink in for a second. That is the absolute staggering percentage of your daily growth hormone output that gets released during your very first slow wave sleep cycle of the night. If you miss that first deep sleep window, you're forfeiting the vast majority of your body's ability to repair tissue, synthesize collagen, and rebuild muscle. During this deep sleep phase, your body is brewing up a highly specific pro-healing hormonal cocktail. Stress hormones like cortisol and catecholamines just plummet, which essentially turns off your body's fight-or-flight sympathetic nervous system. Meanwhile, growth hormone and prolactin spike. This exact mix is so vital that clinical studies actually show surgical wound healing is visibly delayed by up to 23% if a patient's postoperative sleep is disrupted. You literally cannot out-eat or out-supplement this. Nutrition alone cannot bypass this fundamental physiological requirement for healing. But look what happens when the system breaks down. When your sleep is fragmented or restricted, the balance of these immune molecules becomes highly destructive. Specifically, poor sleep causes a massive excess of interleukin-6. This inflammatory cytokine triggers your HPA axis. That's the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the core engine of your sympathetic nervous system. It floods your bloodstream with cortisol, literally locking your body into a chronic fight-or-flight response. So you get this vicious cycle. Inflammation causes autonomic stress, which ruins your sleep, which then causes even more inflammation. It's a brutal loop. And this brings us to a somewhat terrifying clinical question. Millions of people out there think they can run a sleep deficit Monday through Friday and then just, pay back the debt by sleeping in on Saturday and Sunday. But if we disrupt this super fragile endocrine and immune balance during the week, does catching up actually fix the biological damage? Section 5, DNA rewiring and hidden damage. To answer that question, we have to look at a massive and frankly counterintuitive discovery out of the Mount Sinai Cardiovascular Research Institute. The researchers there wanted to see exactly what mild, chronic sleep restriction does to the very molecular foundation of the human immune system. Now, they didn't keep people awake for days on end. Nope. They just restricted a group of healthy adults' sleep by a mere 90 minutes a night for 6 weeks. After that, they looked deep inside their immune stem cells to see the results. And here is the climax of our biological mystery. The researchers discovered that losing just an hour and a half of sleep permanently rewired the actual DNA structure of the participants' immune stem cells. No way, right? But yes, this rewiring forced the cells to overproduce white blood cells, stripping away their normal protective effects and causing lasting cellular aging. So to see if you could actually catch up and reverse this damage, they ran parallel studies on mice. And the results were alarming. Even after giving these sleep-restricted mice 10 full weeks of uninterrupted, perfect recovery sleep, the genetic damage to their immune stem cells persisted. The epigenetic rewiring was locked in. The animals were constantly driven toward a state of systemic inflammation. And critically, this ongoing inflammation chronically irritates the vagus nerve, which severely impairs the nervous system's ability to self-soothe. Bottom line, you simply cannot sleep off the genetic imprint of chronic sleep loss. Section 6. Optimizing your biological clock. So, with all these high-stakes consequences laid bare, how on earth do we protect this architecture of restoration? How do we make sure our nervous system regulates itself properly and our lymphatic system actually clears out the waste? Well, the most powerful evidence-based intervention out there is entirely free: circadian consistency. Going to bed and waking up at the exact same time every single day, and yes, I mean even on the weekends, aligns your sleep cycles with your core body temperature rhythm. This avoids that dreaded social jet lag, keeps your HPA axis perfectly calm, and ensures your lymphatic and immune systems fire exactly on schedule. Also, if you ever find yourself recovering from surgery, maintaining sleep is critical. Studies note that 3 to 5 milligrams of melatonin is a highly safe intervention that won't suppress your respiratory drive while you heal. Finally, you absolutely must prioritize habits that protect deep sleep, simply because your brain's natural ability to generate those restorative slow waves naturally declines as we age. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final thought. We've seen today that sleep is not some passive luxury. It is a highly engineered, life-sustaining mechanism that literally physically shrinks your brain cells to wash away toxins, secretes the exact hormones that knit your wounds back together, and directly programs the DNA of your immune system. Make no mistake, sleep is your ultimate longevity tool. So knowing what's actually at stake on a cellular level, how will you design your biological reconstruction tonight?